listening to Late Night Radio on the SHR Media Network. Caution, there will be mature themes explored and potentially adult language used. If conservatarian words, phrases, certain concepts, or rhetoric offends you, tune out now.
Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike?
You magnificent bastard, I read your book. I drink your milkshake.
How dare you?
I call that bold talk for a one-eyed fat man.
Fill your hand, you son of a bitch!
Captain.
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 Captain. Captain. Captain.
Captain.
Captain. Captain.
Captain.
Captain. Captain.
Captain.
Captain. Captain.
Captain.
Captain.
Captain. Captain.
Captain. Captain. Captain. Captain.
No, not yet. Not yet. Don't pass out on me yet.
Of course you realize this means war.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, where I'm broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. Always spell it with a K, a mere 2 miles east of the locus of evil on the entire left coast, the Bill Mill, the belly of the beast, the Capitol building in downtown Sacramento at 10th and L Streets, where late at night you can hear the death of common sense and its concomitant wail as it wafts from that petrifying edifice. Late at night, when I exit the plush, resplendent, sumptuous, palatial, and effulgently bulbous SHR Media Studios, I'll be smelling the odoriferous stench of sulfur, brimstone, and evil emanating from that mentally destitute, columned structure aforementioned. It is 2020. The time is nigh. The epic is now. The leftist madness in afoot, and criticality is imperative. There is no law, no rule, no tradition, no fact, no history, no logic, no rationality, no proportion, no context, no intent, no tradition, no bit of normality the Democrats, leftists, and American media maggots won't break, kill, slice, mutilate, bury, eliminate, ignore, butcher, threaten, explode, incinerate, throttle, or expunge in order to wrest the reins of power and keep America subjugated in perpetuity for unicorns and unicorn farts and fairy tales. Make no mistake, 2020 isn't truly about Democrats or Republicans. It's instead about the fight against socialism and ultimately communism. Systems, only responsible for the deaths of at least 100 million people in just the last 100 years. We stand to lose this country not from without, but from the enemies within, seen and unseen, due to the keening and purposely cultivated ignorance of the masses. No less than our U.S. Constitution and its Bill of Rights, our very freedoms and liberties are at stake, and I will not stand by and watch this nation devolve and its values, mores, and morals be cavalierly subsumed by those with no interest or care in her success. And make no mistake, this nation is at a tipping point. Because when we fail, the rest of the world follows suit. When freedom and liberty can no longer be found in the United States, what nation exists to step up? Tonight, it is Thursday. It is April 23rd, the year of our Lord 2020. And for the first hour tonight, I have the honor and privilege of having Ken McClinton on the show. He'll be on in just a moment. I'm going to wait just a bit because he is wrapping up his own show. And you can listen to him, just a plug. I'll let him plug himself when he gets here. You can listen to him on the Exceptional Conservative Network. All you have to do is go into your favorite search engine and type in Ken McClinton, McClenton. And then if you have more space or room, you can type the Exceptional Conservative or TECN TV. That's where he broadcasts. He is on Monday through Friday. He's on every night. And some other shows, I think, on Saturday, maybe also on Sunday. He is a workaholic. The guy is on for 2 hours every night. His show wraps up. I'm on his show on Mondays at, that would be about 7:15 here on the left coast, which means it's 10:15 on his time. And so he wraps up at 11. He wraps up his show right around the time that my show starts. So I had to wait just a bit to let him clear up things. Let's call Ken and see. We're going to talk to Ken tonight. He lives in D.C., and we're going to talk to him about some of the things that have been going on with him in the District of Columbia. And because he's in the Northeast, I'm hoping that he'll have a lot of insight on some things that are occurring in D.C. As we all know, just when people say that the Wuhan 19 thing isn't politicized, it's astoundingly politicized. So if people say that, oh, you should never, ever politicize the Wuhan 19, the first people to politicize it were what I call the LDAM, the leftist Democrats and American media maggots. And it became a huge issue. And my clarion call tonight and onwards will be this. John Adams said many, many years ago, freedoms lost are those that generally tend to never return. For example, when you get an entitlement and people tell you that that entitlement is only good for X number of years, do you ever see it rescinded? We acquired the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act, in a number of forms, is still here. And in order to, these are generally predicated upon the phrase that we're here to keep you safe. And it's for the betterment of all. When you hear things like that, all the bells and klaxons ought to be going off in your brainulus, saying something similar to, historically, we've heard this before, and it doesn't bode well for the nation. As I indicated at the beginning of the show, and I also indicated when I came back for the first show after about a month and a half break last Tuesday night, not this past Tuesday, 1 week before, my impetus now is, on the show, I am all done with bipartisanship and compromise. Because now, there can be, the Democrats and the leftists and the American media maggots have clearly shown that there can be no bipartisanship. There can be no compromise. And having said that, I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, that I do have Ken McClinton on the phone. And do I have you there, sir? Ken, are you there? Apparently not. Okay. Well, let me try this. Let me try once more. There we go. So I know that my pot is ringing on my end because I just heard him hang up. So let me try him on Facebook. In the meantime, if I don't happen to get Ken, I have got a ton of stuff to play for you, as you obviously would expect. As I'm letting this ring, I played this last Tuesday night, but this is one. Oh, wait, here we go. Let's try this now. Ken, do I find you there, sir? Kenneth? Kenneth, what's the frequency, Kenneth? Oh, damnation. Okay. Let me try one thing. Tell you what, as I'm attempting to call Ken, I played this last Tuesday. This is a lovely, brutal ad by the Trump folks against the Democrats, and I have to say, I love the hell out of this ad.
We turn now to that $350 billion fund to help small businesses and its workers get through the shutdown.
It will be up to Congress to restock it.
But Democrats blocking that move this morning.
They asked for $250 billion in 48 hours. I said, well, I don't think so. They objected, and I congratulate the Senate Democrats.
Speaker Pelosi, what are you going to share with us from your home?
Chocolate candy.
Thousands have been forced to wait for hours at food banks all across the country.
This is
oh my
chocolate, and then we have some other chocolate here. We just got it restocked with the ice cream.
You don't want to eat up everything all at one time.
I can't do it much longer. I'm trying so hard.
We were, shall we say, enjoying.
Having to admit that, yeah, we're starving, and
I like it better than anything else.
Taping this segment, there are 22 million people out of work.
This specific program is about stopping job losses today.
This is hurting people bad.
Other people in our family go for some other flavors, but
right now it's survival mode. You don't know where that next something else is going to come from.
I don't know what I would have done if ice cream were not invented.
Yeah.
I just wonder.
Let them eat ice cream, says Nancy Antoinette. Great ad. Ken, do you happen to be there, sir?
I happen to be here, sir.
Excellente. By the way, if you didn't know that, this is Ken McClinton, and Ken McClinton, excellente, is Spanish for excellent. So I always like to keep things moving on the show and inject a bit of vibe and vigor and new fresh knowledge. So you just learned a new term today in Spanish. Excelente in Spanish is excellent.
Excelente. Use that at home, kid.
I know. That's right. So, Ken, thank you very much for being here. And I got to tell you that for two reasons. Number one is the first reason, and number two is the second reason. Okay, I'm just kidding. The first reason is what? What? What do you mean? What do you say? The first reason is I only contacted you today because I thought, hey, you know who I haven't had on? And I told him he was going to be on about 2 weeks ago, and then I couldn't come into the studio. Hey, let me just for the hell of it see if I can call Ken and see if he'll come on. It was late today, and by the grace of God and your kindness, you are here tonight at the last moment, so I really appreciate that. So number one, thanks for being here, Ken McClinton.
Well, thank you, DZ, for inviting me. I'm always gracious. I'm gratified by the fact that I'm gracious when I come, but I'm also gratified that you invite.
Well, yes, you are. There's nothing like some self-patting on the back. That's great. I advocate that. Because you are one gracious guy, and I'm glad you brought that up because listen, if the truth fits, and in this case, it's very appropriate. So thank you for that. In any event, folks, as I told you before, Ken has his own show. Ken is a busy guy. Ken works damn near 24/7. So before we go any further and we get into the topic of the day, which I'm sure Ken will do his very best to make sure, as I do with him, that we don't get to cover tonight, tell Ken... What? What?
We're not getting any topics. I know how this works.
Okay. So tell folks where you are, where you can be found. Tell people about your show, where they can find your show, the times for your show, and about your show.
Oh, wow. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share with the world the Exceptional Conservative Show, where you can find us. Our website, our URL is theexceptionalconservativeshow.com. And as well, we've been on the air for over almost 10 years now, a decade. And we just started our television network almost 4 years ago called TECN TV. I'm the president of that, and we broadcast 24/7, 5 basic principles: Christianity, conservatism, constitutionalism, capitalism, and individual sovereignty. And I have the greatest time in the world with BZ coming on Monday nights at 10:20 p.m. on my show, and sticking to all the topics that we're going to talk about that night. He is just the most diligent orator in American conservative history. I must say that.
Thank you very much. And I am nothing if not obedient, because when Ken tells me, what? When Ken tells me that the topic for a given night is blah, 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 I stick to that topic. I don't deviate in the slightest, because after all, it's Ken's show, and I would not try to showbiz Ken on Ken's show. No, not going to do it.
Do you know how much money I've lost to Mrs. Biggs because of you? Because I every Monday night I say, this night I'm going to make him stick to the topic. He's going to stick to the topic. It seems like that's not going to happen. So I said, I will use my commanding clock-like skills to make certain that he sticks to the topic. And every week I lose, man. I lose badly too. I'm literally broke now because of you.
See, if we were in the studio together, what would happen is Ken would reach over and give me a Vulcan neck pinch, and I would come around and he would mind meld with me, and he would tell me, stick to the damn topic, mister, stick to the damn topic. And I'd have to obey.
Exactly. But I want to congratulate you. You've been in the industry for such a long period of time, and your voice is just the most amazing one on the air in this particular day and time. And your bona fides are, not only are you entertaining, but you also educate rather than indoctrinate people. And I think that makes you probably one of the best mics in America. And in due season, people will recognize how gifted and talented you really are. And what a trifle it is that, that we have to beg and plead to get people to listen to Common Sense in America. Here it is right here with BZ. Every single night he's on the air. Just blatant common sense with a rare form of entertainment. Just absolutely brilliant.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I am most deaf, the edumacationationator.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Because if there's one thing that I like to do is edumacationationate. So that's what I do right here on the show, and Ken just proved it. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Tonight, what I'd like to ask Ken about, because I know that he's going to divert me from the topic. So what I'd like to do is have Ken give me a dissertation, I don't know, say no more than about 2 or 3 minutes, on sheep shearing in Australia. Go ahead, Ken. Go. Just like me, they long to be close to you. Okay, let's get serious just for a second. And, okay, second's over. Now we're done getting serious.
That's right.
You had a post that you sent out in Facebook today, and I'd like you to tell everybody about it, because you said, hey, look, I'm on Facebook. Facebook has no bias whatsoever towards conservatives. And then you showed, well, yeah, that's dead. So tell me, Ken, what happened on Facebook that proves that if there's one social media giant that is clearly an egalitarian, that's not Facebook.
Well, let's just say that I want to thank Mark Zuckerberg for giving me the opportunity tonight to dispel the rumor that they are pro-First Amendment. Tonight, I had 2 guests on my program. One was a former council member for the District of Columbia. He is a Democrat, Marxist, and the greatest overt form. Not ashamed of Mao at all. would prefer to spend time with Fidel than certainly any American citizen, Michael Brown. And I also had a Christian conservative who's running in the 7th Congressional District of Maryland, Liz Vittori, and a tremendous bona fide candidate there, could definitely replace Elijah Cummings and would improve the well-being of all of the people of Baltimore. So I have them coming on, and as well, I'm doing the promo for my show tonight, which promotes Open America. The whole idea that America needs to be open, and we need to stop letting the left put their boots right on our neck. So I put all three of the pictures up to promote, and Mark Zuckerberg and his team made certain that I understood who they wanted to hear from tonight. It wasn't those who believe in opening America. It certainly wasn't Liz Vittori. The only picture that they approved, allowed, and accepted was the picture of the Democrat Marxist, Michael Brown. So and while people are watching my network tonight, I'm going to show you. There it is. There's the picture. All three of them have been put in. The only one that got accepted is the Demon Rat even, Michael Brown, which is it's simply amazing. I really appreciate Mark Zuckerberg looking out for our First Amendment rights. There is no greater protector of the First Amendment in America than Mark Zuckerberg, and probably he is unrivaled by even George Mason. I just want to go that far. I don't want to, just smoke up his skirt, but I just want to be honest with him. He is definitely a man of liberty and freedom. So thank you, Mark.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, because he is so fair and equal and balanced and all that. So Ken McClinton, folks, I'm talking to Ken McClinton of TECN. Ken McClinton is the exceptional conservative, has his own TV channel, TECN, the Exceptional Conservative Network. You can watch his shows Monday through Friday. But Ken, let me see if I've got this right. You're making a Facebook post to promote your show for the guests that you're going to have on. Now, you're not running live at this point. All you're doing is you're in the process of creating a post to let people know what's going to be happening on your show. And you put pictures of conservatives, and then you have a picture of somebody that's not a conservative, and the conservative photographs get dumped. And the only one that gets attached to your post is the guy that's the leftist. So I got that?
I got that right. There you go. And I want you to know, Mark sent me a letter saying that he was apologetic, that he preferred that I use all three leftists, whatever it was, and that they will get back with me and let me know when we will allow those pictures of the conservatives to go up. But next time, use three leftists. Fidel Castro, the Pope, and Michael Brown would be fine.
Right. The other thing is that I should like to point out, and you're a little hesitant. You're shy sometimes. Folks, if you don't know Ken, he's a little shy. Little reticent, little hesitant. But what the dealio is Ken, he got this nice letter from Mark Zuckerberg. And so I'm sure that you and Zucky, as you call him, yeah, because he is a good friend, you guys are tight. You guys are close. You guys are really, really close. So basically what you're saying is there's no bias whatsoever in Facebook.
None whatsoever. There's no bias, no prejudice. I don't know what conservatives are talking about.
Yeah.
And I want you to know how close we are, because we actually played golf at the same California golf course that remains open, in spite of what Gavin Newsom says. We have that kind of power. So we're really tight. And so he sent me another letter last night because I did a show about the fact that I call BS on a second wave of coronavirus. Open up America, damn it. And he sent me a note that said, Ken, I really appreciate you sticking to the narrative regarding coronavirus, wearing gloves, wearing masks, staying 6 feet apart, and please do not separate yourself from that narrative. And I appreciated him reminding me that I agree with that narrative wholeheartedly. I live my life with that narrative in my heart, mind, soul, and strength.
Well, it's only fair. It's only fair. I didn't want to tell everybody, but I will anyway. Don't doubt that Ken McClinton is not successful. Ken McClinton is incredibly successful, and it only goes to show that, and he's, like I said, he's shy about this, but he has a 2020 Rolls-Royce Phantom, and he has been talking about from his cigar, the ashtrays are a little full now, and he's already put in his order for his 2021 Rolls-Royce Phantom. You know, you talked about, let's get back to the Wuhan 19 thing in just a moment, and you talked about Facebook. The YouTube CEO says that she is going to remove videos that are critical of the World Health Organization. And you don't see any problem with that, do you?
No, I spoke with LeBron James earlier tonight, and he told me to shut up about anything about China, that I need to keep my mouth closed because China is really trying to do some good things to the world. Thank you, LeBron.
Yeah.
And I look forward to the next time you play. You know what? I hope these guys are not getting paid at all during this time period. So you really understand what the regular Americans feel like. You know what I'm saying?
You were talking about your show, and basically what was going on is you were calling BS on a second wave of Wuhan 19 coming through. Why do you think a second wave of Wuhan 19 is not going to come through?
Well, we're still waiting for the first wave, aren't we? You know, this is kind of like the chick that you date who says, I'm going to rock your world, and then she takes you home, and you're like, okay, I'm waiting.
Yeah.
World not rocked yet.
Yeah.
Remember, it was in a 2-week span of time, Fauci, who some people now treat like a god, Anthony Fauci said, don't worry about it. There's nothing to this virus. This will all go away. And then 2 weeks later, he tells us 1.5 to 2.5 million people are going to die. And it reminded me of War Games, 1983, where Joshua, the big whopper computer, Matthew Broderick was in the movie, and it was dealing with nuclear war, playing this game that almost appeared to be real. And he came to the very end of the game and realized this is not going to end well. So how about us play another game, a nice game of chess? You know what I'm saying? We literally have gone from some guy who's been sitting in some ivory tower telling us that 2.5 million Americans were died to now the estimate from the good London International University or laboratories and lies telling us that only 62,000 Americans are going to die. I haven't seen the first wave, and I'm doubting very seriously if we'll even see a second wave. But what we have learned is that Americans have been so fearful of the left that the left can tell a lie and shut the world down. That's what I've learned.
Folks, we're talking to Ken McClinton tonight. We're going to have to take a break, come back. When we come back, I'd like to offer that there are two Americas that are out there right now. And as I said at the beginning of the show, just when leftists and Democrats and the American media maggots say you should never politicize something as terrible and heinous as Wuhan 19, the first thing that is done is that they've politicized the hell out of it. So when we come back after the break, we're talking to Ken McClinton. I'd like to continue to talk to Ken about the two Americas. And then I'd like to drill down a little bit because Ken is in D.C. and I want to give Ken the opportunity to tell him what a wonderful, kind, and loving person is the D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. So, what? So when I come back from the break, we'll talk about those two Americas, and then I'd like to have Ken fill everybody in here as what's happening in D.C. right now from that loving, embracing, and all-inclusive Mayor Muriel Bowser. And, well, yeah, I guess what that means is we'll be... Yeah, because she is...
Mayor's Second Amendment.
Yeah.
She is definitely the biggest Second Amendment fan in the world.
Oh, and First Amendment. Yep, and First Amendment, too. So, folks, this is Ken McClinton. I'm BZ. You're listening to the Berserk Bobcat Saloon. We'll be right back after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
This is Shannon Wright of The Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. Mike's not here, so I gotta talk fast. You gotta join us. Fall season. Getting ready to start up with a whole bunch of new stuff. News and food and politics and sports and entertainment and a whole bunch of stuff. But wait, Mike's coming. I gotta go. Remember, Shannon and Mike in the AM on SHR Media, Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. Make sure you tune in.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
Join me, Jack Alexander, for the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast, as I take a unique outsider's look at the issues affecting the USA. I fearlessly take on the issues that everyone else is too scared to touch. The Jack Alexander Experiment podcast is available wherever good podcasts can be found, like Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcast. The Jack Alexander Experiment, because it's not a matter of left versus right, it's a matter of right versus wrong.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Featuring the effervescent contrarian Sackheads Clint, plus the unrestrained bulbosity of BZ, the Sackheads Against Tyranny is a real chat show. Doubling your late-night conservative talk show pleasure with Double the Hosts, you can listen every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. Please note, some contents may have settled during shipping. Member FDIC, batteries not included, warranty void in Montenegro.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back. I am BZ, the bloviating Zeppelin. You are listening to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. Live and direct from the sumptuous, palatial, and resplendent SHR Media Studios, where I am broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. Always spell it with a K. 2 miles east of the locus of evil on the entire left coast. That would be the Bill Mill, the Capitol building in the state of California. Always spell it with a K at 10th and L Street in Sacramento, downtown. Tonight we are speaking to, and I forgot to say, folks, if you're on Facebook and you're a devotee of the Second Amendment and or firearms, I would highly recommend that you join the USGOA. That's the U.S. Gun Owners Association on Facebook. I almost called it Fakebook. Well, it is on Facebook because it's a great group and great folks. So USGOA, if you want to be a member of that. Tonight we're talking to Ken McClinton. We're going to talk about freedoms lost because there's an ass load of them leaving, fluttering away. And when they leave, are we going to get them back? That's a big question. So in D.C., where Ken is, Ken, can you describe for everybody some of the loving edicts that have come down from Mayor Muriel Bowser in Washington, the District of Columbia? By the way, anytime I hear the word Bowser, I completely think of one of these long, flappy-jawed dogs leaking saliva. Here, Bowser. Here, Bowser.
Well, when I think of Bowser, I think of the that show that used to come on, the Greaser show that used to come on during the 70s. Bowser.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Where Mayor Bowser, who has a great affinity for the Second Amendment,
right,
has actually gotten us to a point now. Because remember, she said that we were supposed to close down all non-essential businesses. And those businesses included there's only one gun store in the entire city.
Because why would you want another one? I mean, really? Jeez, don't be greedy, guys. Don't be greedy guts in D.C.
Exactly. But this goes back to the home rule charter that worked amorously towards the eradication of gun stores in the District of Columbia. They used to be as common as liquor stores, but they were eliminated thanks to the left. And then we got down after we won the Heller Act.
Oh, right, the Heller decision from the Supreme Court, correct.
Exactly. We got down to just one. And that one was placed in the basement of the police station at 500 C Street downtown. So, literally, you had to go up the stairs through a metal detector gate in order to go in to buy a gun.
Okay, wait a minute. Stop right there. This is a story I have never heard before. Let me see if I've got you right, Ken. In D.C., if you want to consider looking at a firearm in a gun store, because there's only one, because why else would you need any more? After all, it's D.C. It's the one-stop shop for guns in D.C. You have to go into the police department because the gun store is right under the police department. Do I have that right?
Got that right. It is right.
Okay, you're not making this up.
I'm not making this up at all. And once you get inside, they give you a 17-page application to fill out in order to get the real application to get a gun. So you have to fill out 17 pages say that I'm a good citizen and I would never use a gun in the wrong way in order to even apply for a gun. And then they take the application and they give it to the police chief. And someone in the police chief's office decides whether you are a good citizen or not and deserve a gun. Or even that you can conceal carry, which, my God, that's like winning the lottery here, man. Concealed carry license, gee, you're closer to getting $100 billion on a lottery. So after you filled it out and after you've gone through the process of being proved that you can actually get a gun, you go back in and you can now shop for a gun. Now, while you're shopping for a gun, you can't take that gun out of that police station unless the police have actually done a ballistic test on it. So you're not taking your gun home today. And you may not get that gun back for about 2 to 3 weeks. So finally you get your gun, and you have to get approval for the ammo for the gun, too. So once you've gotten the approval for the gun, for the ammo, after filling out 17 pages of an application form just to get the approval to get a gun, they decide all of a sudden, okay, you can take that gun home. You can go through the metal detector. We'll watch you as you go out to the car and everything. But as a result of it being a non-essential business, it lost its ability to perform. So now, the owner is no longer a part of that particular gun shop. The mayor decided we don't have anyone to take over the gun shop because we consider it non-essential. So in this particular case, we are going to allow the police now to buy and sell guns to the American citizens. So in order to get a gun, to protect your home, you have to go to the police station, fill out a 17-page application to ask permission to buy a gun from the police, who will then determine whether you qualify. And then you have to go inside where the police officers are, and they will determine which gun you can buy or sell. Yes, America, the Second Amendment is alive and well in Washington, D.C. Thank you, Muriel Bowser. Thank you.
Ken, in chat, Mike wrote, sometimes the most ridiculous things happen to be true. So Mike and I were corresponding back and forth. When you were saying this, and I want to confirm if this is true, because you and I rib each other back and forth.
Yeah.
But you brought up, the first thing when you said this is, I smell a massive Fourth Amendment search issue right here, and I want to confirm this with you, just to make sure that I'm understanding you properly. Did I hear you say that before you're a firearm buyer, let's say that you, after being backgrounded, etc., you come back, 25 years later, and you can get your firearm from the gun store, the singular gun store in D.C. that is aligned with the D.C. Metro Police, who share common walls, apparently. Did I hear you say that before you're offered your firearm, it is fired in the station, a ballistics test is taken, and only then after it's been fired, it's given to you? Did I hear you say that?
You are correct, sir. You are correct. Ding, 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 ding. Where's that bell?
Okay. Yeah, here's the bell. Okay, or here's this. So
I'm gonna be honest with you. I was just waiting for Dean Helen, and I asked Dean Helen to come on my show this week because I really want to talk with him about this. I can't wait to the next legal contention here. All this smells of such tyranny that it's literally unbelievable.
Okay.
That you literally have to go to the police station and then they test your gun before you leave.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Okay, you and everyone listening, you do realize that the only reason that they're, air quotes, testing your firearm is a direct violation of the Fourth Amendment against illegal searches, because that becomes a search. Now when they fire the gun, they'll have a bullet which contains the active lands and grooves in order to capture your barrel twist so that it can match whatever bullets come from your gun specifically to that barrel. So people do realize that's happening then. That's a massive abrogation of the Fourth Amendment. And my first thought and question should be, all the bells and whistles should be going off in every attorney's office in D.C. If that's true, then that's a lawsuit, that's a losing lawsuit for the Washington Metro Police just waiting to occur, which is why I wanted to confirm. So that's happening. Before you buy a firearm, or let's say after you've been backgrounded in D.C., and before you're handed your new firearm by that singular dealer in D.C., the D.C. police have already fired your weapon and have on file all the markings that they can match up with that barrel of that gun and whatever medium in terms of ammunition they ran through that barrel. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir. You win again. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. So literally, every possible version of the Constitution has been invaded by this. Even the fact that you have to go to the police station to get your gun. This is unreal. It is freaking unreal. And I'm just wondering, when that was announced, why wasn't Attorney General William Barr saying, this is shady, this is not right, someone needs to intervene here? What must we do to have the freedom of the Second Amendment, the freedom of the Fourth Amendment, and even the freedom of the Fifth Amendment, ladies and gentlemen? Because you're guilty by buying the gun. You're implied guilty of any potential crime because they're doing the ballistics test. To me, I love Muriel Bowser. I think she's the greatest thing since Swiss cheese because she's got a lot of holes in this Constitution that she goes through every single day. And so I'm just waiting for somebody to do a class action suit on this particular matter. There is no doggone way that the police, the Metropolitan Police Department, should not be in the business of buying and selling guns. It's unethical. It's un-American. It is. Can you see where all the errors of our ways could be in terms of just ethics on this? If you are like, you get a gun. If you're not like, you don't get a gun. And who's doing all this? The police. The police chief. And I'm not saying that he's an evil person and stuff could happen. I'm just saying, we're not angels. We're human. And stuff can happen. It is just wrong. It is unconstitutionally wrong, in my opinion. And I hope that we get a hella case on this so that we can finally get a president and a DOJ that says there should be more than just one gun shop in the District of Columbia. And it certainly should not be in the damn basement of the police station.
Okay. Honestly, Ken, I'm going to be serious just for a moment here because customarily with you and I am not. I am still attempting to process the information that you gave me about what the police are doing in terms of the handling of firearms from the single gun store, the sole gun store in D.C. It would seem to me, number one, obviously, clearly, this is screaming for a lawsuit to occur. It would be a losing lawsuit in terms of the city of D.C. and its concomitant police department. That having been said, if this is occurring, I don't understand why, if nothing else, the NRA hasn't covered this. I'm not seeing this on gun sites. I'm not seeing this on firearms groups. I'm not seeing this on NRA supporting groups. I'm not seeing it in gun stores. I'm not seeing it covered by the media. I'm just not seeing this, period. This is a national, to me, this should be a national shock. So my first question is, number one, yeah, I was shocked. Number two, searches. Number three, your rights. Innocent until proven guilty. Well, no, apparently you're guilty until you're proven innocent. And by the way, we'll take evidence from you, assuming that you're in the future potentially going to be really, really guilty. And of course, we want to make sure that we have that on you. But moreover, I'm shocked, disgusted, appalled, throw in your Mark 1, Model 1 additional adjective, if you will, that no one has covered this. So my next question to you, Ken McClinton, whom I'm talking to right now, and I have been for the first hour, is in D.C., in that area in D.C., is that fairly common knowledge, or is this only something that you have recently discovered?
No, it is common knowledge, in fact, and the mayor said that she actually received federal approval to do what she did during this pandemic, that the police could now be the ones that buy and sell guns for the District of Columbia citizens. So that sent a flash of light to me. How could the federal government approve of such an unconstitutional measure by allowing the police to be the ones in charge of buying and selling guns for the District of Columbia citizens? And your question about where's the NRA, where's the DOA, well, they don't live here in the District of Columbia. No one's lived here in the District of Columbia that was a conservative and believed in gun rights. They've been ushered out to places like Herndon and Richmond and Lexington Park. So they don't have a groundswell here of concern. We have watched literally the Second Amendment die right before our very eyes, right here in Washington, D.C. And it's okay, because it's Washington, D.C. It's a liberal capital. It's where the next fascist is born. So it's an acceptable standard. But it is a standard that depletes our constitutional rights, even as citizens of a district. I'm literally appalled by the fact that the mayor got federal approval to put the police department in charge of Americans buying and selling their guns in the District of Columbia, in the basement of the Central Police Station for the District of Columbia.
Okay, I have some additional questions. I hope you know the answers. Okay. Who owns, or do you know who owns, and the Alaskan in chat asked this question, who owns, or do you know who owns that gun store?
I can check for you one quick.
Okay. As you're doing that, I don't know if you're going to access it on the internet or not. The other question I have is, okay, the gun store, is that, I don't know, like a state or a city sponsored gun store, or is it a private gun store? And then my corollary, two questions to that would be, how long has that private gun, if it's a private gun store, how long has that gun store been squished in the basement of the Washington Metro Police Department? The other question is, did this occur only after Mayor Bowser placed restrictions on firearms? In other words, did the police only start test firing brand new firearms after Mayor Bowser wrote or came out with that edict, or is that something that they've been doing for quite some time and dates ahead of the Wuhan 19 coming to the United States? I know it's kind of a convoluted series of questions.
It's not convoluted in the sense that the District of Columbia has had possession, I believe, of that particular gun store. It's not state-owned until the pandemic. Now the state owns it. But it was a private owner who was forced by agreement between the federal government and the state, District of Columbia, in terms of the placement of that particular gun store. And it was part of the settlement for the Heller case.
Okay.
And yeah, so it's been about that time period. We were all appalled by that in the first place, but it was allowed. But now the private owner, because of the pandemic, doesn't have the wherewithal to keep the gun store, so it would be non-operational. But according to the CDC, it has to operate because of the prime objective of the Second Amendment being protected. Well, the mayor didn't go out of her way trying to find someone in the city to buy it. And quite frankly, got approval from the federal government to turn it over to the police department to manage until such time as they can find someone to take on that particular role and responsibility as a private owner. And that's the key point, until such time. When does that time come? We went from a multitude of gun stores to just one.
Again, to confirm, because I've been processing this for the past half hour. This was going to be a show tonight with you, Ken, about all sorts of freedoms and the various abrogations therein. We've settled on focusing on what Washington, D.C. is doing with a singular gun store, with one gun store following the Heller decision. And now you're telling me, and correct me, you had a private business that was taken over by the Washington police. They're waiting to see, because of the mandates, they have to remain open because it falls under that kind of a mandated business being open. The private owner wants to get out, but can't. And
the private owner is gone.
Oh, the private owner is gone.
Gone. Mm-hmm.
So did the private owner sell it?
Well, that's a very good question in this regard. I don't know if he sold it or he just simply was unable to carry out the functions of the business during the course of the pandemic. So in this particular case, the firearms registration branch of the D.C. Police Department took it over.
This, folks, listen to what Ken is saying. This is happening right under our noses, and I've not yet heard or seen anyone cover this issue. Now we have a police department under the directive of a local mayor that has taken over essentially a private business. And while under the guise and scrutiny of the police department, a once private business is collecting evidence pre-sale of each firearm, and only when that evidence is collected on the assumption that you likely or possibly may do something criminal with that firearm, which is a tool, that you may possibly use that tool, that they're capturing evidence and marks should that tool, the firearm, be utilized in the future. Does anyone within the sound of my voice see a fucking problem with that?
Anyone. I mean, and you don't have to be Stevie Wonder to figure this one out. This is insane. And I want to let you know, I sent you in Messenger the story by National Gun Owner regarding the fact that the only FFL in Washington, D.C. shut down because of too much demand, apparently. Yeah, that's the reason. COVID-19 was the reason why it was shut down. And the mayor now has control of that particular bill. Well, I do say the mayor, and I say that literally because that was the person who appoints the police chief, and the police chief is responsible now for the oversight of this particular business until they find a legal owner who will take over that particular business.
Okay, and you hear the big pregnant pause because I'm still back at being stunned by all of this. It's like the computer in my brainulus is locked up and telling me at this point, processing. Folks, this is America 2020. We're talking about in the time of Wuhan 19. And we're going to have to go. I know you got to go. Mayor Bowser has also extended everybody being locked up in their home until what, May 15th? That's the last I heard. Is that
Been moved. We're down to the 30th of May now. 30th of May.
Okay, so good. Another month and a week. Because hashtag, why wouldn't we screw you?
Exactly. This is what I'm going to say to every American who's listening tonight. In all sincerity, I've said it on my show. I've said it to people in private. But literally, America, you're going to have to ask yourself the question, where in your Constitution for your state did you give mayors and governors eternal emergency power authority? Where is the limit to their authority? Where is the time limit? Where is the financial limit? Why is it the legislature even involved in this process to begin with? Your rights have already been left at the door. You are living in the communist republic or whatever state you're in, because literally one man or one woman has the right to tell you how to live. And I want you to remember that the CDC is not the legislature of the United States of America. It's not Congress. It is a bureaucracy within a bureaucracy. CDC is within the Department of Health. So literally, ladies and gentlemen, they can only make recommendations. They don't make law. Your governor, your mayor are unconstitutionally making law, and by executive power enforcing that law, and by judicial power telling you who will pay the price for breaking their law. They are tyrants, and you need to do something. When this is over, every person should have an Article 5 moment in their state constitution and make certain that there's a limitation on the powers vested in the heart, mind, and soul and strength of that particular governor and mayor, because literally they have complete and utter absolute power over you right now. That's not America, people. That's not America in the least bit.
Not in the slightest. Not in the slightest. When I come back, I'm going to have stories that have come out of Texas recently about more abrogations of law like that. And we're starting to see some pushback. Ken, thank you so kindly for being here tonight. Tell people about your show. Where can they hear it? And what days and what times?
Well, they can come and watch my show Monday through Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 2-hour show. We talk about the best in urban conservative news and talk, and we present the principles, which are 5: Christianity, conservatism, constitutionalism, capitalism, and individual sovereignty. And if any of those are abused, there is no liberty, there is no freedom, there is only tyranny. God bless you, man. Thank you so much for having me on your show tonight.
Thank you, and thank you for being here tonight, especially at the late night and last notice. Really appreciate it. Folks, that's Ken McClinton.
Thank you for allowing me to break that news story. There you go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
God bless you.
God bless you too, Ken. We're going to take a break, come right back. When we do, we're going to talk about some breaking news. One is actually a happy story, although I don't have many of that these days. And a lot of other stories that we're going to talk about. Folks, when you lose your freedoms, we're going to have to re-examine who we are as a people and as a nation. Because historically speaking, freedoms lost, they don't come back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Southern Sense is conservative talk with Annie, the radio chick you balance as host, and C.S. Bennett co-host. Informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey. Annie is a top conservative host on Top Talk Radio and features some of the finest guests packed with important politicians and newsmakers. Listen every Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to 3 Pacific, on the SHR Media Network. Remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York. The Lid himself, Jeff Dunnett. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunnett.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Good evening. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is featured on the SHR Media Network every Tuesday and Thursday night for 2 hours at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific. Whilst manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ continues to radically change the world of leftists, one diaper at a time. Stop balancing your checkbooks. Stop cleaning your fish tanks. The bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is your magnet for truth, justice, obesity, a darkened studio, and late-night freedom. No United States of America freedoms were abridged in the making of this ad.
This is Shannon Wright.
And this is Michael Wright.
Reminding you to listen
to The Right Way with Shannon and Mike.
Every Monday through Thursday.
7 to 9 a.m.
Right here on shrmedia.com.
Join me, Jack Alexander, for the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast, as I take a unique outsider's look at the issues affecting the USA. I fearlessly take on the issues that everyone else is too scared to touch. The Jack Alexander Experiment podcast is available wherever good podcasts can be found, like Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcast. The Jack Alexander Experiment, because it's not a matter of left versus right, it's a matter of right versus wrong.
After 6 years covering terror and corruption, the Unpleasant Blind Guy is making a change. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker and YouTube through SHR Media and on the Western Free Radio Network as I team up with Jeff Mitchell, host of the English Defense League radio show on blogtalkradio.com. Check show pages for airtimes. It's the Unpleasant Blind Guy.
On EDL Radio.
There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Featuring the effervescent contrarian sackheads Clint, plus the unrestrained bulbosity of BZ, the Sackheads Against Tyranny is a real chat show. Doubling your late-night conservative talk show pleasure with Double the Hosts, you can listen every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. Please note, some contents may have settled during shipping. Member FDIC, batteries not included, warranty void in Montenegro.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back. It's the second hour of the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. In the first hour, we have Ken McClinton on the show. He told us a story. I hope you were listening, because I'm going to write a story off of what he happened to just tell me. If you wish to purchase a firearm in D.C., that's now coming under the auspices of the D.C. Police Department, by order of the Heller decision and also by Mayor Bowser in D.C. If you pass background, but before you're handed your firearm, it is test-fired by D.C. Police, and until I hear otherwise, there's no reason not to assume that they're keeping every round fired through that so that they can match ammunition to your barrel, indicating that you are guilty before you are innocent. You're assumed to be guilty. The firearm is a tool. That is a Fourth Amendment violation screaming for a lawsuit. I hope one comes. But these are the freedoms that you're losing day by day. Ken told you where he can be found. He's on TECN TV. I should also tell you from someone who just happened to jump into chat. Texas Dan is in the chat room. Oh, before I do that, if you guys happen to be on Facebook and you're a devotee, as I indicate, of the First Amendment, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, firearms, the NRA, the Second Amendment, as I indicated, go to on Facebook, the U.S. Gun Owners Association, the USGOA, and become a member. Great group, great stories, all collated right there by Texas Fred. Great place to be. But since Texas Dan is in here right now, if you guys are looking for local news in Texas, go to highplainspundit.com, all one word, highplainspundit.com. From, I think it's North Texas, the North Texas area. You can get local news, opinion, farm and ranch, Texas news, national news, world news, sports, and various scoreboards. So check out High Plains Pundit if you happen to be in Texas. A lot of local news around, let's see if I get my localities correct, right around Amarillo in Texas and the northern portion of Texas. Jack has an interesting point in chat. Yeah, simply fix, immediately replace the barrel and extractors. That'll screw them up. Yeah, nothing like keeping, because you can be guaranteed if they're test firing your weapon, they're keeping every casing and they're keeping every bullet. Hi, here's your new gun. That isn't really a new gun because we've already fired it. Here is a win. Wait a minute. I haven't played this in so long. I am going to play it. Whew, because I haven't had something like this.
It's time for happy stories and good times.
This just came out today, April 3rd. And the headline is this, breaking. U.S. District Court grants preliminary injunction blocking California's ammo background check law. That's a win. And if I had, let's see, if I had a producer after I read that, you'd probably hear something like, yeah, but I don't have a producer. So the story goes like this. A big preliminary win for the California Rifle and Pistol Association in its fight against California's ludicrous ammunition background check law, the case known as Road versus Becerra, Becerra being the Xavier Becerra, the Attorney General of California. U.S. District Court Judge Roger Benitez, who, by the way, I should point out is the same district court judge who set off a week-long Standard Capacity magazine buying spree, he issued an injunction blocking enforcement of the law. He wrote this: "There's a judge with some sense. Law-abiding citizens are imbued with the unalienable right to keep and bear firearms along with the ammunition to make their firearms work. That a majority today may wish it were otherwise does not change the constitutional right. It never has. California has tried its unprecedented experiment. The casualties suffered by law-abiding citizens have been counted." And finally, he writes, "Defendant Attorney General Xavier Becerra and his officers, agents, servants, employees, and attorneys, and those persons in active concert or participation with him, and those duly sworn state peace officers and federal law enforcement officers who gain knowledge of this injunction order or know of the existence of this injunction order are enjoined from implementing or enforcing the ammunition sales background check provisions found in California Penal Code 30370. And it goes into a whole bunch of various delineations of penal code sections. What do you think is going to happen? The obvious. A ton of people are going to go out and they're going to get ammunition, I would guess, and or, I don't know. Will, the other question then is this: will you? Will people like, I don't know, Ammunition Depot or Brownells or Cabela's or people like that, places like that, are they going to be shipping what is essentially gun food now to California, always spell it with a K, during this really brief period of freedom? Because you know right now Xavier Becerra is totting up how quickly he can appeal that and go back to his original ban on ammunition absent a background check for ammunition, just like you'd have to have a background check for firearms. Okay, and while we're losing our freedoms, there'd be another thing that I'd care to point out to you in terms of freedoms lost. Because just when people say this coronavirus thing, Wuhan 19 thing, it should not be politicized. Yeah, well, the first fucking thing that happened with the LDAM, leftist Democrats and American media maggots, is they politicized it immediately. So what this has pointed out is that in the United States, there are now two Americas, and they're clashing with each other. And these two Americas are this. One, the people who want you to stay in your house are those who are still getting paid and they have jobs, generally big jobs. Democrats, do you think any of them are stopping their pay? Hell no. They just gave themselves a raise, if you didn't know. They still have their jobs. Leftists in Hollywood, they still have their jobs. The American media maggots, a bunch of them, they still have their jobs. You see their faces on TV every day, every hour. So they want you cooped up. The people who don't have jobs, who lost their jobs, who have bills to pay, kids to feed, wives, husbands, parents, children to take care of, they want to get back to work. So you've got this fight is basically the haves who have their jobs, but they're telling you you're okay. As long as you don't have a job, you're doing it for America. And the people that don't have jobs are saying, you know what? It won't mean anything in a week or so, when at the end of the month, I have bills to pay, a mortgage, rent, car payments, groceries to purchase, shoes and clothes to get and food for my kids, and I can't make it or pay it. So Glenn Reynolds wrote an article about that, the disparity between the two, and it's political. He writes, the country's been shut down for about a month. We're seeing cracks start to form. Some epidemiologists are talking about keeping things closed down for months longer. And we're seeing growing public protests around the nation. People are calling for restarting things. Other people claim to call them and are calling them virus deniers and accuse the protesters of wanting people to die. But it's hard not to notice a class divide here. As with so many of America's conflicts, the divide is between the people in the political, managerial class, imagine that, on the one hand, and the people in the working class on the other. And as usual, the smugness and authoritarianism, boy, do I have a story about that, and law enforcement from Texas. And the people in the working class on the other side, and as usual, the smugness and authoritarianism are pretty much all on one side. The divide is best summed up in a tweet by Brian Stelter, the little bald dude who looks like George Costanza, only fatter and more stupid, of CNN. And in response, Stelter tweeted, I crawled in bed and I cried for our pre-pandemic lives, tears that had been waiting a month to escape. I wanted to share because it feels free to do so. Now is not a time for faux invincibility. Journos are living this, hating this, like everyone else. But you know what freedom is, folks? Freedom is the ability to make your own choices. Freedom is this. Freedom is the ability of the states to make their own choices, and then ultimately, you to make choices best for you. So let's say in your individual area, locality, some stores start to open up. Now, isn't it weird that you can still get deliveries, you can still go to the doctor, you can still queue up to get funding from government, you can go into the grocery store, be around lots of people, but going back to work is still bad. People are still associating with each other. Who's the best individual best suited to judge whether you are ready to go out and get engaged with society again? You are. So why doesn't the freedom exist for people to make that decision? Those people that want to stay inside, stay the hell inside. If you are afraid of getting coronavirus, Wuhan 19, stay inside. I have decided, pushing 70, I'm not living life like that. I'm not denying that people, 40,000 people, 45,000 people haven't died behind this. There's no denying that whatsoever, not by me. But I want freedom. If I decide to stay inside, I'm going to stay inside. And here's the other thing that people aren't even talking about or considering. Let's say that various businesses decide that they're going to open up on a preliminary schedule. Open up on limited hours, limited days, a limited number of people inside. There are a lot of workarounds that can be done for various businesses, restaurants, services. There's still a ton of services. People have come out and serviced my air conditioning already. I can go and take my car into a shop to have it repaired. People are wearing masks, there's distancing, etc. But you can still do that today. Even in California, always spell it with a K. It's happening right here. So if people are uncomfortable, people vote with a ballot. Yeah. People also vote with their feet. So if you open up business A The people themselves are going to decide whether they are going to patronize business A. And if they think it's too early, they won't. If they feel comfortable with it, they will. That's them voting with their feet. That's them utilizing freedom, which is what this country is about. So I told you the good news about that story with regard to ammunition in the state of California, that a judge has blocked California's ammo background check law. Now let's go to Texas. Let's see, what do I have? Okay, I got 5 more minutes before the bottom of the hour break. I can squeeze some of this in here. Going over to Texas now, we have a judge in Harris County who's decided to take it upon themselves to acquire powers not granted them by the Constitution. This is from the Houston Chronicle, so this isn't from someplace that doesn't know what's going on. This is from the Houston Chronicle. Hidalgo, who is Hidalgo? We'll get to that. Harris County Judge Lena Hidalgo, on Wednesday, today, because it's still today, it's still Wednesday in California, always spell it with a K. Judge Hidalgo, she orders Harris County residents to wear masks in public. So she believes that she has the power to decree by verbal and written fiat that residents must... If you think it's limited, just wait. She's ordered residents to cover their faces in public beginning next week in an attempt to slow the spread of coronavirus. Coronavirus is not exploding in Texas. Texas, to my knowledge, is not the vertical urban rat cage, although there are a few in Texas, like Dallas and Houston. But they're not like New York City, where it has absolutely exploded. Anybody with half a brain can tell you why. So the new rules, the new edict by Judge Hidalgo requires residents 10 years old and older to cover their nose and mouth when they go outside of the home. And that takes effect this coming Monday, and it lasts for 30 days. So by her grace and goodwill, because she's not that oppressive, please, come on. She says she'll grant you the ability to wear a homemade mask or a scarf or a bandana or a handkerchief. She doesn't recommend N95 respirators. Let's save those for first responders and health workers, shall we? And then there's some pushback on that. And I've been watching along as way too many, in my opinion, law enforcement officers have been going along with this stuff. I've watched videos of law enforcement in California, always spell it with a K, all across the nation, doing, in my opinion, stupid shit by arresting people who, for example, are paddleboarding on the ocean by themselves where there's nobody around because, that virus is all over the damn Pacific Ocean. And in the process, a sheriff's boat comes and tries to pin this guy in next to a pier, and then a 47-foot U.S. Coast Guard boat comes around. 2 boats, both sucking fuel like crazy, both staffed by federal and local law enforcement authorities. In terms of the 47-foot boat, the Coast Guard and federally paid employees, and by the smaller boat, the sheriff's department of that locality. So they're using, in the process of attempting to snag that one heinous, terrible criminal, they blew through probably $15,000 to $20,000 worth of fuel and pay for everybody on 2 of those boats to apprehend that terrible individual. A mom was hauled off of near an area where swings and kids are playing. We've seen the one where the guy in San Francisco was locked up, handcuffed in front of his kid and his wife for being in a park. Well, the Houston PD apparently has decided they're not going to take much of that anymore. And I say, quite frankly, right about now, that's about damn time.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Southern Sense is conservative talk with Annie, the radio chick you balance as host, and C.S. Bennett co-host. Informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey. Annie is a top conservative host on Top Talk Radio and features some of the finest guests packed with important politicians and newsmakers. Listen every Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to 3 Pacific, on the SHR Media Network. Remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunnett. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunnett.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Good evening. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is featured on the SHR Media Network every Tuesday and Thursday night for 2 hours at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific. Whilst manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ continues to radically change the world of leftists, one diaper at a time. Stop balancing your checkbooks. Stop cleaning your fish tanks. The bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is your magnet for truth, justice, obesity, a darkened studio, and late-night freedom. No United States of America freedoms were abridged in the making of this ad.
This is Shannon Wright.
And this is Michael Wright.
Reminding you to listen
to The Right Way with Shannon and Mike.
Every Monday through Thursday.
7 to 9 a.m.
Right here on shrmedia.com.
Join me, Jack Alexander, for the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast, as I take a unique outsider's look at the issues affecting the USA. I fearlessly take on the issues that everyone else is too scared to touch. The Jack Alexander Experiment podcast is available wherever good podcasts can be found, like Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcast. The Jack Alexander Experiment, because it's not a matter of left versus right, it's a matter of right versus wrong.
After 6 years covering terror and corruption, the Unpleasant Blind Guy is making a change. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker and YouTube through SHR Media and on the Western Free Radio Network as I team up with Jeff Mitchell, host of the English Defense Elite radio show on blogtalkradio.com. Check show pages for airtimes. It's the Unpleasant Blind Guy.
On EDL Radio.
There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Featuring the effervescent contrarian Sackheads Clint, plus the unrestrained bulbosity of BZ, the Sackheads Against Tyranny is a real chat show. Doubling your late-night conservative talk show pleasure with double the hosts, you can listen every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. Please note, some contents may have settled during shipping. Member FDIC, batteries not included, warranty void in Montenegro.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we're back. It's the final 25 minutes. The final 25 minutes of the show. I'll be back next Tuesday. A slight programming note. Michael Fitzpatrick, who is he's a consultant for everything cybersecurity. I had him on about 2 months ago, almost 3 months ago. Great guy, highly insightful, highly intelligent. He's going to be on the show Tuesday night. I'm working for another guest on getting another guest on next Thursday night. I'm going to try to see if I can technically pull this off. To see if I can get Ralph Chittims and Lonnie Poindexter on the show for the first hour together, because these guys have been riffing back and forth about all the stupid crap that's been occurring in D.C. So technologically, there might be a little challenge on Thursday, and I have to get them both to agree to see if they have the time to be here. So that's my goal for next Thursday night. So Mike Fitzgerald, a cybersecurity expert, has tentatively said yes to be on the show next Tuesday night. And then with luck, I can get Ralph Chittims and Lonnie Poindexter, both fabulous Americans who happen to be black. And, oh my God, they're such terrible Americans, though, however, because they're both conservative. We're talking about the loss of freedoms. And nothing exemplifies the loss of freedom better than the stupid-ass Michigan governor who decided that it was within her purview to decide to tell you what it is that you can buy in an open store. So let's say you go into Lowe's, which is a hardware store. I don't know if it's on the East Coast. Or if you go into a Home Depot, which is around here again on the left coast. I don't know if you have a Home Depot on the right coast. But they're big hardware stores. And in these stores, there are certain things you can get. And then according to her, there are certain things that you can't get and that were literally taped off. And little notes, you cannot purchase this. That would include paint, things in the gardening section, hoses, etc. Stores in Michigan larger than 50,000 square feet must close areas that sell carpeting or flooring, furniture, and paint, as well as garden centers and plant nurseries. And this is America, folks. We haven't been making this up on the fly. This is in the public domain. You can go anywhere and you can see this. Finally, some of the more egregious things I illustrated to you before the break. Finally, police and law enforcement are beginning to push back against all of these stupid draconian edicts that are coming down from all these little pitiful local tyrants. So now we're beginning, thank God, to have chiefs of police and sheriffs from Texas to Washington, Texas being the most obvious and the most recent, standing up against these stupid orders from local leaders demanding absolute strict Marxist-like adherence to stupid extreme distancing measures to curb the spread of Wuhan 19. I told you before the break about, what was it? Harris County Judge Lena Hidalgo's ruling saying it's mandatory starting next week for 30 days to wear a mask if somebody over the age of 10 goes out in public. You and I both know that's unconstitutional. Well, apparently we're not the only ones. Here's a letter dated yesterday from the Houston Police Officers Union, Texas's largest police union, by the way, dated April 22nd. To our community and our officers, it has come to our attention that Judge Lena Hidalgo will issue an order this afternoon, and did, for all of Harris County, making it mandatory for anybody over the age of 10 to wear a mask in public. Now we want to be very clear. The Houston Police Officers Union believes everyone should be wearing a mask in public in order to protect themselves from the virus, and we are encouraging all of our officers to wear a mask. However, we draw the line at the draconian measures Hidalgo has decided to engage in. Our officers work every single day to bridge the gap with our community and earn their trust. We will not stand idly by and allow Judge Hidalgo to tear that bridge down with her horrific leadership and echo chamber decision-making. The HPOU, Houston Police Officers Union, has made contact with the Attorney General's office seeking an opinion on the legality of imposing a criminal penalty or fine for anybody not wearing a mask in public. While we wait for that opinion, we're reminding and informing our officers that they have discretion in matters such as these. It is clear the so-called leader of Harris County lacks any critical thinking skills, but let me assure the public, our officers do. The last thing any of us want to do is kick our community while they are down. Thank you. Houston police officers are already stretched entirely too thin during the COVID-19 pandemic. Violent crime is up this year. Murders up by 35%. Property crime is up. Burglaries up nearly 30%. And HPD officers are staffing test centers across the city. We don't have time to be pawns in Hidalgo's game of attempting to control the actions of law-abiding, tax-paying individuals of our community, especially since this idiotic order is possibly an unconstitutional one from the county judge. Let me assure the community our officers will continue to serve on the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic, risking our lives and our health to protect you. We will continue to serve with honor and respect our community, despite Hidalgo's best efforts to erode that support. Thank you to them for having actual huevos and using discretion, something that is not in a great abundance these days. So in Washington, we've left Texas. Now we're moving north into the state of Washington. Snohomish County Sheriff Adam Fortney announced yesterday, Tuesday, the 22nd, that his officers are going to abstain from enforcement of lockdown orders, joining Franklin County Sheriff J.D. Raymond, who said he would not stop churches and businesses from opening with reasonable distancing measures in place. Fortney wrote, Sheriff Fortney, Snohomish County Sheriff Adam Fortney, wrote on Facebook, "As I have previously stated, I have not carried out any enforcement for the current stay-at-home order. I will always put your constitutional rights above politics or popular opinions. We have the right to peaceably assemble. Thank you. We have the right to keep and bear arms. Thank you, Sheriff. We have the right to attend church service of any denomination. Thank you, Sheriff, for realizing the obvious." Fortney challenged Democratic state Washington Democrat Governor Jay Inslee's lockdown orders as inconsistent, deeming some businesses more essential than others. And while government construction projects may continue, Fortney points out, why is it that private contractors are still out of work? So he pointed out, the good sheriff, okay, I arrive to work at the courthouse and I see landscapers show up each day to install new landscape and maintain our flower beds. However, a father who owns a construction company and works alone while outdoors is not allowed to run his business to make a living to provide for his wife and children? So Sheriff Fortney said this contradiction is not okay and it's bordering on unethical. Now let's go a little bit further east to Michigan. 4 sheriffs. Notice a similarity here? Notice a beginning? Are you beginning to see a theme? Sheriffs who are elected and not appointed. In Michigan, 4 sheriffs in the northwest part of that area announced last week that they're going to refuse to enforce Democrat Governor Gretchen Whitmer's lockdown orders, what you can and cannot buy at a store that is already open, which have been, oddly enough, the most extreme in the country. So by the stroke of a pen, Whitmer deemed it illegal for Michiganders to travel between residences or buy seeds while lottery tickets remain permitted to be purchased. The sheriffs in a statement said that she has created a vague framework of emergency laws that only confuse Michigan citizens. Correct. As a result, we will not have strict enforcement of these orders. We will deal with every case as an individual situation and apply common sense in assessing the apparent violation. We believe that we are the last in line of defense in protecting your civil liberties. Thank you. Thank you very much, good sheriffs. There are still some law enforcement officers that are utilizing common sense. They still exist in this world. I talked about things being politicized. And I fervently believe this. The Democrats are looking, the LDEM, leftist Democrats and the American media maggots are looking for this country to tank. They're looking to Cloward Piven this nation. And the Cloward Piven strategy goes like this. In order for good leftist thought to prevail, there must be so much placed to tax the current establishment that it crumbles of its own weight. And then when that happens and is destroyed, then they will rebuild a new America in a leftist bent. That is what is happening today, guaranteed. And they already said, Bill Maher said last year, if we get it, or maybe even before, if we get a depression out of this thing or a recession, that's great if it gets Trump out of office, because this is all about removing OMB, Orange Man Bad. Donald John Trump, the guy with the dead orange cat on his head. Today, Kurt Schlichter wrote at townhall.com, and I agree, which is why I'm reading this, the Democrats totally want a depression. If the malevolent donkey party was actively seeking to plunge the country into an economic tailspin while still maintaining some level of deniability to the credulous suckers out there, exactly what would it be doing differently? It would be pretty much doing exactly what it's doing right now. Shilling for the bat-gobbling Chi-Coms, delaying needed assistance to keep America working, and generally trying to keep us all locked up in the dark in perpetuity. It's fair to assume that you intend the expected consequences of the actions you take and the consequences of the actions the Democrats are taking, it's economic ruin. The indisputable fact is that they're totally cool with that, if that's what it takes to get them back into power. Democrats are never one to let a good crisis go to waste, and this Wuhan flu is a very good crisis indeed if your goal is leftist hegemony. The Trump economy was booming after the near decade of the Obama doldrums, and people were getting a taste of prosperity. But a happy, prosperous America is something the Democrat dudes, they can't abide. All the Democrats had to sell were recycled cries of racism and Russia, and their standard bearer was that sinewy weirdo Grandpa Badfinger who was promising to drag us all back into the nightmare of globalist failure. The future looked grim, and it means it actually looked bright for the rest of us. So the Chinese coronavirus was a dream come true. Sort of a deus ex pangolin that finally, after an endless series of leaks, impeachments, investigations, and media meltdowns, might be the magic bullet that actually takes Trump down. Am I saying that the Democrats are exploiting the pandemic for their own cheesy advantage? Well, yeah. Everything they're doing is consistent with that. Everything. No, in the abstract, many of them would probably not prefer that tens of thousands of Americans die. If I get enough Twitter death wishes to know from their own filthy mouths that some absolutely do want us to die. But their attitude seems to be that if life gives you tens of thousands of dead Americans, make political lemonade. And upon reading this, there's going to be a lib blue check in the Frito-Con sissy huffing and puffing because I dared point out this manifest truth. So allow me to recommend that those who are upset go soothe themselves with a nice bowl of artisanal chocolate ice cream, which I am reliably informed makes everything better. Absolutely no one believes the Democrats are not going to wring from this black swan all the droppings they can squeeze out onto President Trump. Most of them are cunning enough to try to hide it, but some of them are bray out loud, as leader party AOC did when she talked about the related oil crash hit. She was positively giddy that millions of Americans were facing destitution, but even she was aware, sufficiently aware, to eventually understand that might have been kind of a bad look, and she deleted her high five tweet. The indisputable fact remains that the Democrats are the party of making things worse. We had Pelosi schmoozing with that late-night hack before the backdrop of her rich lady fridges, while millions of small businesses were being ground into dust, waiting for her to allow the empty PPP fund to be refilled. Every day she delayed saw more Americans out of a job. 22 million out of a job as of this writing, and more to come. This is Great Depression-level ruination. But Scat Francisco's finest was in no hurry. It was only when her Purple State minions started squealing that she slowly, like a pinko sloth, began to act. She was going to kill off as many jobs and small businesses as she could before she inevitably rolled over. If you got canned last week, thank her and her garbage party. The Democrats want a slow walk through reopening, too. They are an urban party. And those cramped petri dishes are going to take a while to recover. But out in the fresh, clean, open spaces of Red America, there's no need for this continued lockdown nonsense. Yet the Democrats, aided and abetted by the scuttling cockroaches that compromise the media, are demanding that every place be treated just exactly as the worst place. We are terrible monsters for, let me get this right, wanting to go back to work and not go bankrupt. So according to them, somebody strolling across the Nebraska prairie is going to kill everybody in Brooklyn. Of course, nobody believes that. Not even a little. No, their scheme is to leverage the crisis to keep these Trump-friendly areas down as long as possible, to do as much damage as possible to POTUS and hurt his chances in November. When you add the blizzard of lies from the media blaming Trump for not taking a break from the bogus impeachment charade to lock down the country back before we actually had any cases at all, their strategy is clear. Use the pandemic as a weapon, which means the worse we're hit, the better off they are. We're not supposed to say that, at least according to the people doing that. Well, somebody has to say it. And it sure is not going to be our garbage media. What started out as prudent temporary measures based on largely voluntary common sense compliance have become bludgeons to club the economy like a baby seal. They want to slip that senile puppet Gropey J into the Oval Office based on the dual lies that this is all somehow Trump's fault and that the Democrats will not make things much, much worse. Again, exactly what have the Democrats done that disputes the hypothesis that they seek to ratchet up the pain for cheap political advantage? They've trashed and they've undermined the president. They've flacked for the Red Chinese and the WHO hacks. They've fought tooth and nail against the aid small businesses lead. They've been the hashtag resistance to opening America. Actions speak louder than words, and the Democrats' actions shriek. Your family security being destroyed is a small price to pay for us regaining power. Absolutely. But wait, there's more. How does Nancy Pelosi get away with blocking this aid? How does the Speaker of the House, in the midst of this unprecedented Chinese-driven Wuhan 19 pandemic crisis, how does she get away with delaying desperately needed aid to small businesses? And in the process, she escapes blame in this massively politicized environment. How does she do that? Okay, the truth is she didn't just stand in the way of aid for about an hour or two or a day or two. She stonewalled for 2 weeks. In the meantime, small businesses all over the country are struggling to stay afloat, and then many of them just died and went away. In which time of the fear of the Wuhan 19 and the government stay-at-home orders reduced their business incomes to zero. and still she gets away with it. Yeah, in that thing, there was a problem. The Trump administration made a big deal out of efforts to get money out the door as quick as possible. And some businesses were targeted. There was some problem with some big businesses. Restaurant chains like Ruth Chris, Shake Shack, and some others used a loophole to get money that shouldn't have gone to them. Shake Shack was actually shamed into reducing that cash. Thank you. But in general, the Paycheck Protection Program worked. But it was only one small step. So then California decides it's going to step in. This is probably going to be the last story for the night, just to let you know. So this is California, always spelled with a K, sees an opportunity to get further into enabling socialism. So it says there's a bill coming to reduce California rents by 25%, using the coronavirus as an opportunity to do exactly that. To erode, basically what's happening is they want to erode property rights. It's, AB 828. The California Apartment Association is reporting a new legislative proposal using COVID-19 as the reason and would force every rental property owner in California to reduce rents by 25%. AB 828 mandates housing providers to force landlords to reduce rent by 25%, even if a tenant cannot show a Wuhan 19 hardship or a need, allowing the courts to set rents and charge rental agreements already in place, assuming every tenant is in fact facing a Wuhan 19 hardship and must be compensated for it, protecting nuisance tenants. The bill does not require tenants to answer an unlawful detainer complaint, and mandating that rental property owners demonstrate an economic hardship to collect the contracted rent. So what this is doing, this is an ability for California to further get into enabling socialism. Okay? A couple of questions. Don't see them addressed here. What if the banks involved that are owning the notes on those properties won't accept 25% less from the property owners? What about the bankruptcy of property owners? Didn't see anything in there about that. Resulting in tenant evictions. Did see something in that. So then what happens? Because you got to ask yourself this question. Does that mean the government steps in and buys those rental properties, and the government gets to decide who succeeds and who fails? And then we got more. California, always spell it with a K. Public housing. How great could that be?
Monsieur! Es un
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here from the SHR Media Network, sumptuous, palatial, and resplendent studio. By the way, I am active as hell on Twitter at BZEP, at BZEP. Promotional consideration is by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, and also by Shure and Electra Voice microphones, like this one here, the RE20 that I'm talking into. Also by Arrakis boards that I'm manipulating right now, and also by Pratt & Whitney engines. Thrust. You can trust. Tiaras are by My Little Pony. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, with whom I will be consorting in less than an hour. So thanks to everybody for listening live. Thanks to Ken McClinton in the first hour. Thanks to everybody for being in chat. Thanks for listening live. Thanks for listening, everybody in podcast. I do, in fact, appreciate every one of you. Folks, have a great weekend. Thanks for taking time out of your busy day or night to listen. I will be back Tuesday with cybersecurity consultant Mike Fitzpatrick. God bless. Take care. Be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.